local level is what we're seeing the most damage. Your district attorneys, your judges, your local sheriff, your chief of police, your local level are the ones that are doing the most damage to our communities. And we really need to pay attention to those at the local level. You need to be on your school boards, because school board members, as we know, I'm not sure if you follow Sean Buckner Transparency, but he exposed one in Diane just recently. And if you want to go and read the one that's going on in Diane right now, his family, the coach's family, is in the school system. It's kind of like what we saw in Ringling. Ringling school system, the coach was also the principal. He was having the boys get naked and do up-downs in front of them. He also would make them put their phones up and not allow them to have their phones. This is gross. This is what's going on everywhere. I don't like the bell-to-bell deal that's going through the house and got passed. Says the kids can't have their cell phone anymore. That's where a lot of this stuff gets busted at, is the local level. So I'm going to get to some of our speakers, and I know JJ's on his way from a parade, but I'm going to get to some of our speakers. We have some really great speakers. The first speaker is going to be Carrie Moore. She's with Parents for Payne County. I recently met Carrie. She's an advocate like me. She sees what's going on and she really wants to help. And so I'll let you tell a little bit more about yourself, Carrie.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so really quickly, I'm gonna try something, and you guys are gonna think it's ridiculous, but we're gonna do it anyway. If you're not standing but you're able, will you please stand? Okay. Everyone take a step to the right. Everyone take a step to the left. If nothing else I say today resonates with you, I still made you a movement. Okay? Okay, so my name is Carrie Moore. I am with Parents for Payne County, and I am here today as a parent, as a friend, and as someone who believes that the good will always outweigh the bad. I represent Parents for Payne County, a group built by moms, dads, and community members who believe something very simple. Children deserve to be protected. Families deserve to be heard, and systems meant to serve the public must be accountable to the public. Many of us here today have not the experience that we have lived or that we have witnessed. I want to take a moment to acknowledge that first. This space, this movement, it carries a lot of pain. Many of us have lived through situations where we trusted as someone in authority. System, a process, a person. And that trust was broken. We showed up, we followed the rules, we asked for help, we asked the right questions, and instead of protection, we were met with silence or resistance, or sometimes decisions that nobody could make sense of. That does something to who we are. It does something to our heart. It does something to our soul. And it creates a level of frustration and grief and very justifiable anger. But I want to be clear about something. Anger is not the enemy. It's the alarm bell that tells us the system's not working. Our child isn't being protected. Our family isn't being heard. That kind of anger is valid and it is necessary. Because if we didn't have it, we wouldn't know where to start to create change. And this is where we have a responsibility to proceed with caution. Anger can do two different things. It can become a weapon, or it can become something we use for, it can become a weapon, or it can be something we use for blame, division, or destruction. Or it can be something good. It can become fuel that drives us to build something better, fuel that pushes us to ask hard questions respectfully, fuel to seek the truth persistently, fuel to demand accountability, not to create more fear or more systems, but to bring peace. The kind of fuel that brings people together instead of tearing them apart. At Parents for Payne County, we've decided to make a very conscious decision. We're going to use that anger as fuel, not to burn people down, but to burn away the things that are not working. The gaps, the breakdowns, the lack of transparency, so that something stronger can grow in its place. And that is why we filed the grand jury petition. Not as an act of retaliation, not as a political move, but as a lawful constitutional pathway available to us when serious concerns deserve independent review. When trust is broken, the answer is never going to be silent. The answer is transparency. So our rally today, it's not about one group. It's not just about what's happening in King County. It's about creating a culture for our state where parents are not dismissed, children are not overlooked, and accountability is not optional. And this is where our voices matter, because real change is going to come. It's not going to come from my speech or even the speeches to follow. It's going to come from people like you who show up and fan this flame and use it to look at our own hearts and are willing to have hard conversations from a place of love. I couldn't ask for better kids to be running behind me while I go through the problem. I claim proudly. We have to have hard conversations from a place of love. Love for our families, love for our communities, and love that waters a seed of hope that may be impossible to believe or even see on most days. If you're here today and you have a story, a moment where someone who was supposed to help did more harm than good, a time where you spoke up and you were ignored or betrayed, please know that your voice matters. Not because it's loud, but because it's real. I know how easy it is to feel and to look crazy when crazy things are happening to you. But I'm begging you, please don't unpack and live there. We have to believe that when we bring these stories together, we're not just highlighting problems, we're creating clarity, we're creating momentum, and we're creating the kind of pressure that leads to real, lasting change. As we move forward, I hope we do it together. We have to stay grounded in something stronger than our frustration, stronger than our anger. We have to stay grounded in love. Love for our kids, love for our communities, and yes, a love and commitment to building systems that work better for everyone. Because if we lose that, if we let that anger turn into hate and turn into division, we risk becoming a big part of the very problem that we're trying to solve. We don't heal hurt by hurting others. So here's my call to action. Let your anger show you it's broken. Recognize that we have an infection in our system, but don't stop there. Turn it into something constructive. Figure out what antibiotic might need to be prescribed, and ground yourself in knowing that you can make a difference. Volunteer, ask questions, support one another, use the tools available to you, and then share them with someone else who doesn't know that they exist. Stay committed to the long game of rebuilding trust and accountability, because this isn't just about today. It's not a simple problem that is going to be solved quickly or by one group. It's going to take every single one of us who believe that our communities, our state, can do better, especially some of the good people doing their best to do the right things in a very complicated and very broken system. Life isn't black and white, and we have to give the same empathy and the same grace and the same compassion for others that we often need for ourselves. This is the kind of work we leave behind for the next generation. One we won't see the fruits of for years to come. A system where kids are safer, more supported, and more prioritized. A system that focuses on strengthening families through wraparound services, where communities are more connected because we have lived through the destruction that disconnection creates. We're not going to get there by tearing each other apart or saying our way is the only way. We're going to get there by standing together, firm, focused, and grounded in purpose. So I appreciate you all being here. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for turning your pain into purpose. And if you'd like to find out how you can support our grand jury petition in Kane County, whether you want to knock on doors or make phone calls, please visit with me. I'll be off to the side after this. Andy?
The Cheeto-faced little one right there is the reason that we're all standing here today. It's to fight to make sure that their generation is protected, and the system is tremendously broken. I've reviewed probably 10,000 DHS cases in the last 8 years, and I can tell you it's it's a disaster. Do we need DHS? Absolutely. Do we need more social services and resources for people? Absolutely. But not everyone needs their child taken, and not everyone needs their rights terminated. Some do, but some don't. And so in that system of being very broken, we have problematic issues that we can fix inside this building and inside law enforcement offices and district attorney's offices. Having recently been a victim myself of a crime, that was back in October. I still have not heard from Cleveland County District Attorney's Office about prosecution on that. And it should be a simple, cut and dry thing, but this is where we're lacking. And district attorneys all over the state really need to step it up to protect the people and taxpayers of our community. Our next speaker today is going to be Heather Boss. I met Heather Boss a few years ago when I spoke at her church with Broken Trust, when I talked about pedophilia in the state and grooming, and educated those in that meeting on what they look for and how those perpetrators find victims. So thanks for being here, Heather.
I am Heather Boss, and I'm so happy to be here with you all today. So it's not just another political rally today. I know that we have those, and I know that a lot of you attend a lot of rallies around the state and here at the Capitol often. But it is a day of reckoning, okay? Because in Oklahoma, behind closed doors, behind court filings, and behind the case numbers and agency reports, there are children who should have been protected, but they were not. Families who have cried out for help and are ignored. Scripture tells us in Proverbs chapter 31, verses 8 and 9, to speak up for those who can for themselves, and to defend the rights of the poor and the needy. And that is exactly why you and I are here today, and why you and I stand up for these issues. April was Child Abuse Awareness Month, but awareness without accountability only becomes more noise. And Oklahomans have had more than their fair share of noise. In recent years, Oklahoma has seen over 13,000 confirmed child abuse cases annually that we know of. Confirmed cases. 13,000 in one single year. Oklahoma consistently ranks near the top nationally in abuse rates per capita. But we're told the system is working. Does that sound like it's working to you? Even after years of reform, oversight, and restructuring, Oklahoma still sits nearly double the national average in child abuse rates per capita and ranks 46 in child well-being nationally. We're concerned about education being 50th in the nation. Where's the concern and outrage for being 46th in child well-being? I think they go hand in hand. Something's broken. This is a documented reality reflected in national child welfare rankings and long-term outcomes. And at the same time, we have thousands of children in state custody, removed from one crisis and placed into another, one that was supposed to protect them. This isn't an attack on caseworkers, and this is not an attack on the foster parents. Many of them are doing everything they can inside of a structure that is overwhelmed, understaffed, and stretched way beyond their capacity. This is a system that has not worked for quite some time. So let's take a quick step back and look at this system as a whole. Oklahoma's modern welfare system, child welfare system, was born out of a crisis. It was the subject of a federal class action lawsuit alleging that systematic failures of child safety, placement, and oversight. This was a case that ultimately led to sweeping reform efforts in 2012. This is commonly known as the Pinnacle Plan. The current system was not originally designed as a stable model. It was redesigned after being declared legally broken. It's been 14 years. 14 years of reform efforts, oversight structures, and policy changes. The system is still operating under ongoing evaluation and performance monitoring because the outcomes have not been fully stabilized. If a system required over 14 years of federal supervision and ongoing monitoring to just function safely, and we're still seeing 13,000 children abused annually, then we have no choice but to stop and ask the very hard question: what exactly are we fixing? Most of the legislation passed in recent years has focused on improving processes, preventing programs, kinship placement improvements, and administrative adjustments. Absolutely, these changes matter and they're necessary, but they are not a structural redesign. They are merely attempts to only improve a system without changing its foundation. You cannot permanently fix a system that is structurally unstable by only adjusting its procedures. What we cannot do, what we must not do, is normalize failure when our children are the cause. We cannot normalize children being moved from home to home, children being placed and left in unsafe environments, children falling through the gaps between agencies, families begging for help but only being dismissed, and children being taken from homes that were never unsafe to begin with, or children not being returned to their biological families in a timely manner. This is where the conversation has to change, where it has to shift, because it's not just a policy issue. It is a constitutional rights issue. Parental rights are not privileges granted by the state. They are fundamental rights given to you by God Almighty that are protected under the Constitution. And any system that has the power to remove a child from a home must operate and be held to the highest level of accountability, transparency, and restraint. What we have right now is a centralized bureaucracy with overwhelming caseloads, inconsistent oversight, and outcomes that still leave too many children unprotected. And we must stop calling the system reformable and start demanding that the very foundation that is not structurally sound be replaced. I know what people say when I talk about abolishing DHS. Yes. They say, so what's your solution? Tear it all down and then what? My solution is not total abandonment of children who are being abused. My solution is total replacement. When a system is structurally broken, replacement means that we cannot just tweak it. We have to dismantle what isn't working and build something that is. We dismantle what is failing and rebuild what protects our babies. A system that actually works must look different than what we have currently. Smaller, independent child protection units, strict caseload limits, kinship first placement, community level oversight, constitutional safeguards that ensure that due process is never an option. Psalm 82 verses 2 and 4 says, how long will you defend the unjust and show partiality to the wicked? Defend the weak and the fatherless. Uphold the cause of the poor and the oppressed. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. God isn't giving us a suggestion. This is a command, and I don't take it lightly. So what does real change actually look like here? It looks like action. It looks like leadership willing to say and do what others will not. Leaders like folks here today, leaders like me who are willing to fight. I will fight for strict caseload caps when written into law so that no child is ever lost in this overwhelming system again. I'll fight for full independent audits of child welfare cases because accountability cannot come from inside the same system that has failed. I'll fight for kinship first placement, and I will fight for real oversight outside of bureaucracy because only transparency can protect our children. I will fight to rebuild this system from the ground up into something smaller, more accountable, and constitutionally sound. And I will fight for laws that if you even think about bringing harm to a child in Oklahoma, you will face consequences so severe, so certain, and so publicly visible, no one will ever question if justice was done. Not someday, not when it's convenient, now. Because if we know children are being failed, then doing the things the exact same way is no longer an option. To every parent who has ever begged for help and has been ignored, to every child who has tried to speak up and you were not believed, to every foster family trying to hold together pieces of a system that keeps shifting under them, you are not invisible. I see you. I hear you. God sees you. God hears you. You have not been forgotten. You have not been abandoned. Oklahoma, we owe our children more than simple slogans. We owe them a system that actually protects them. And when a system cannot protect children from abuse, then not only do we need better leadership, but we need a better foundation to stand up. Oklahoma must be willing to face the truth. Accountability isn't controversial. Ignoring the failure is. And today I'm not asking you to just agree with me and talk all about this. I am asking you for your courage. Courage to stop pretending that this system is fine when it's not. Courage to demand something better than managed failure. Courage to say, our children are not acceptable collateral damage for a broken structure. Change is no longer optional. Oklahoma's children deserve a system that does more for them than respond after the damage has already been done. They deserve a system that prevents it. They deserve protection that works. And they deserve leaders willing to rebuild what has failed them. Because a system that has failed children time and time again does not deserve to be protected. And I will not stop until the system that protects every child like they matter. Because every child does matter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming, Heather, and speaking. It's so powerful to hear Carrie and Heather's testimony of what they're talking about because it really brings clarity. Because for years, for the last 8 years that I've been fighting the system, I thought I was crazy. And as I started reaching out and speaking at different events and meeting people, I realized that the system is truly broken and we're all in it together. And sadly, at the end of $300,000, my stepdaughter is not protected in the same way that none of these other people's kids are protected. It's not about the money. It's about the law and not following the law and not prosecuting the crimes. I know if the crimes had been prosecuted in all these cases, all of us wouldn't be leaning on the district attorney going, hey, what's going on? So if you would like to get involved or you know somebody that would like to get involved with the Payne County grand jury petition, you can reach out to Parents of Payne County on Facebook and they can get you in touch with door knockers. Carrie's been really great. She's got the geography all down, the maps down. It's perfect. Our next speaker is going to be Casey Yoakum. I met him when I was speaking with Broken Trust. He's a really powerful speaker, so I want you guys to understand he comes from a place of experience and knowledge. And when I first listened to him speak, it's just so moving. So thanks, Casey, for being here.
Thank you for having me. First off, I want to let you know I'm Casey Yoakum. I have 2 daughters. One's about to graduate college in 7 days. One's a sophomore at AU. I'm a survivor, a whistleblower, and a victim myself. Today I want to speak about coaches and teachers, how easy they have access to their kids. Start off with Boomer Sooner, rest in peace, 1-6. Now with boring stuff behind us, let's talk about coaches and teachers who prey on their students. They use the status and authoritative figure to wreak enormous personal damage on the boys and girls that they supervise. Often their acts go undiscovered, and they keep their secrets from their parents. Don't get me wrong, sports are great for kids. They're great for the parents. As a child, as a parent, you have spidey senses that go off when something is wrong. You have to stay involved with your child. You got to know when your child is going through issues. Always be committed to being a parent 24/7. The question: people steal from you normally people that know you. They know your routine. Now let's take a step back. Now consider this. We tell our kids all the time, don't talk to strangers. People are preying on our kids sexually, are not strangers. Know the mind of the child. Between 1 in 7 boys and 1 in 4 girls are sexually abused before graduation. Ask yourself, when did the coaches and teachers have time for XA, my child? Simple answer. When you're not looking and you assume that your child is with the best coach and the best teacher, spending extra time with my child. Coaches and teachers all drive school buses. We're always picking the first one up, dropping the last one off, getting as much time with that child as possible. Teachers and coaches should never pick your child up or drop your child off. Your child should never stay the night with your coach. If your kids get picked up, please have your kids picked up with a group. Everyone dropped off as a group. We understand parents do get busy. Coach steps in and says, don't worry, I'll be in the area, so I'll pick your child up, bring them home. Mainly single parents, grandparents, single family homes. So when do you think this abuse goes on? It goes on when the coach takes you to practice. It goes on during the school, at the game. It goes on after the game. You show up to go see your athlete play, and they're on the bench the entire time. And you know your son or daughter is the best in the team. He's disciplining my child, is what you're thinking. Maybe he's getting back at Johnny for not letting him take him home again, excuse me. Maybe Johnny has asked a friend to ride home. And the coach heard that now he's not going to take Johnny home. And so the position of power, Johnny's not playing the game because coach heard he's getting a ride home. And coach is no longer giving him a ride home. Well, the abuse is gone. Then your teenager wants to step away from mom or dad as they get older. Get a little bit more independent. Single mom, single dad asks for a babysitter. Well, they automatically know that teacher or that coach. They call them right up. And just like that, you just invited an essay coach or an essay teacher back in with the child. Talk to your kids. Be nosy. Check their phones. Open lines of communication are critical and undercover. Inappropriate relationships between coach and player. which this happens all the time, which the child may not always recognize as abuse. I do want to say thank you guys for coming today. We have some great speakers left to listen to. Don't go anywhere. God bless, and God bless. Here you go.
You know, it's really important that you listen to what Casey had to say, because these teachers spend more time with your children than you do. These coaches spend more time with your children than you do. And so when you allow that into your world, you have to know that they have the opportunity with all those hours in the day that they spend with your kid to mold them and groom them to think this behavior is okay. When I was taking the training into pedophilia and grooming, one of the first things they taught us was to watch behaviors. So they call it a desensitizing tactic. And what the coach will do, teacher will do, groomer will do, will be to put their arm around the child, and this is like the number one move for a groomer. They'll let their hands slide down to their bottom as the picture's taken, and it'll be in front of people, and it's like, oops, sorry, but it let the child know I just did all that in front of all these people, and it was okay. And so then it opens doorways to other things, and it just gradually moves from there. A groomer will target somebody where they don't see a father figure, they see a father that doesn't come to events. Maybe your child's good in track or basketball or whatever, and you don't get to make all the events. Well, if they don't see the father figure or any familial support there, that child then becomes a target. And so they see that person as a vulnerable person, and then they're like, well, let me bring your kid home because you weren't at the game, it's late, let me take your child home. And that just opens more doorways. So I know right now finances are tough with people. Have grandma, grandpa, have other people, aunt and uncle step up to fill this void so that these perpetrators don't have access like that to their child, especially unlimited access. That's really important. Our next speaker is going to be Haley Luther. I met Haley Luther right here in the Capitol. I was doing an interim study. I've done 3 interim studies in here and testified before the legislators about things that are happening with our children. She was very timid. She came up to me and she was like, can you look at my forensic interview? And I was like, yeah, I can. So I started looking into her case. Haley's case has all the things that a district attorney should love. It has a forensic interview where it says the child made the disclosure. The child disclosed what she was wearing when the perpetration happened, all the things. And yet the district attorney's office, which is now under fire, Cleveland County District Attorney's Office, failed to prosecute. And, you know, a lot of times they say that children are not they don't have enough integrity or not honest enough. 2% of children lie. That's an abstract statistic. 2%. When a child makes a disclosure, you should believe them and you should protect them at all costs. One of the other things that they taught us in the class of pedophiles and groomers is that they will tell the parent, I made the child mad, they're going to say X, Y, and Z, and then when the child does go to them for the disclosure, the groomer has already put it in the child's head that there's some reason for this, and so they don't believe the child. Please believe your children when they say that. I'm a certified forensic interviewer as well. I have over 400 hours of child abuse training, domestic violence training, reporting, all the things. When a child makes that disclosure, please believe them, especially when they're telling you that they're wearing Dora the Explorer. They knew what they were wearing. It's branded into their brain, and they remember. Nobody coached them to say that. It's branded into their head, and they were likely going to be like Dora the Explorer again. But anyway, here's Haley Luther with her story and where she's at with her life now.
Hello, my name is Haley Luther. I'm a veteran, a Native American, and a survivor of domestic and sexual fighting for her child. And I'm standing here today because of the very system that are supposed to protect children failed mine. But let me be very, very clear right out the gate. Child abuse is a crime. It is not a family court issue. It is not a civil dispute. It is a crime. And crimes are supposed to be handled by law enforcement. But in Oklahoma, what happens instead? The moment you report abuse regarding a child, it is funneled into agencies like DHS, an administrative body, not law enforcement, not trained to prosecute crimes, and not held to the same standard of evidence, due process, or accountability. And in my case, decisions about my child's safety were made by someone with a degree in evangelistic ministry, not even social work, not in child psychology, not in forensic abuse assessment, yet they were given the authority to decide whether or not my child was safe. We don't let untrained people perform surgery, right? So why are we letting untrained people decide whether or not our children are being abused? And that should really concern every person here. In my case, my child made very clear disclosures of sexual abuse, specifically identifying her father and her stepmother by name. She didn't say my stepmom, she didn't say my father, my daddy. She's called them by their name during a forensic interview. Not a vague statement, not confusion, a clear disclosure. You know what happened? The DHS worker, Chloe Walker, committed perjury in her affidavit, stating there was no disclosures, even though the Child Advocacy Center reported clear documents, multiple disclosures of sexual abuse and other abuse. Chloe thought I would never get my hands on this document, just like most people do. The system allowed the very people accused to remain in control. Why? Well, you see, the father works in law enforcement and has family within DHS child welfare, and no safeguards were put in place to prevent conflict of interest. DHS is not law enforcement. They do not file criminal charges. They do not prosecute abuse. Yet somehow they are making decisions that determine where a child lives, who is safe for that child, and whether abuse is substantiated or ignored. And they're doing it without a courtroom, without a jury, and without real accountability. My DHS case was closed within weeks, but the damage was far from over. Since then, DHS engaged in an ex parte communication and coordinated with my abuser's attorney, helping lay the groundwork for him to gain custody in family court. All because the foundation had already been built by DHS's lies. Family court is supposed to be acting in the best interest of the child, but what happens when the court relies on flawed investigations, when it ignores forensic evidence, when it silences the protective parent? You get orders that don't protect children, they protect liability. Stating things like, they can't right a wrong, or diagnosing a child with interview fatigue after the very first interview of the child by DHS. You get a system more concerned about avoiding mistakes on paper than stopping abuse in real life. On August 19th, 2024, my daughter was taken from me, from her home, from her entire maternal family, her dog, her belongings, her culture, and yes, even her name. And I'm still fighting in family court, fighting to undo what was done, despite perjury and suppression of evidence, despite abuse and domestic violence, no warrant and ICWA violations, along with witness tampering, and despite an attorney working with DHS to perform a legal background check, and even a relative of the stepmother admitting he was offered money to make this false report to DHS. I am still fighting. And even though I didn't choose this fight, I will finish it. Because this isn't just about my child anymore. It's about every child whose voice is ignored. Every perjury, and bias, while the system profits. This wasn't a failure. This was a system working exactly as it was allowed to do, profiting. While my child, Gracie, she's not a case number, she has a name, continues to pay the price. I'm not done. I'm not backing down, and I'm not going away. Because the truth deserves sunlight, and my daughter deserves justice, and I will burn every inch of this broken system into record until accountability is the only thing left standing. Thank you. You have it.
There are so many cases out there that are just like Haley's that DHS workers have lied on their affidavits that put into the court that got their children taken. Hundreds of the over 10,000 cases that I reviewed, there's thousands of those. And that's exactly what happened. The statue that they hide behind says that you can't see those records. That means that no matter what they put in the record, you can't see it. You can't argue it. You can't say. I'll never forget in one of my husband's things, the DHS worker wrote, I saw the child at Dad's house and she was very clean and she's at this address. The child didn't live at that address. The child had then been living at my address. Lie number one. Lie number two was she was very clean. She had hair, blah, blah, blah. She did not want to eat her green beans. That was lie number two. The child would take a cold can of green beans and we could open them and she would eat them cold because that's the way she liked them. That was the second lie. Those lies, the only reason I got to see that is because our attorney had access to those records through the courts and I could then argue it. You can't see those. So all the thousands of children that get taken in the state of Oklahoma, DHS workers are allowed to lie and put that into your record, and you will never know it, and you can't see it. But the judge is going to get to read it. The judge gets to read the entire DHS record, and when he reads the record, he sees all those things. Well, she didn't say this, and she didn't say that, or she said, Mom's great. One of the DHS records in my husband's case said, on October the 13th of 2017, I remember the day very well, I met the child at Sand Springs McDonald's, and I talked to her, and she said she didn't like the stepmom. She was mean. Well, on October the 13th of 2017, she was sitting in a classroom all day. She never met a caseworker at a McDonald's. She was in school. But had I not been able to see that, I would not know that they were setting it up to provide a narrative to the judge to make me look like a bad person. That's what DHS does. Now, I'm not here to say that DHS has over 6,000 employees. I'm not here to say that all 6,000 are garbage. But I am here to say that there's a significant number of garbage. And they're in your case, and this is how they take. I recently was in a court hearing, and I witnessed a mom crying, a stepmom crying. And she said, I've done everything I can. I've called DHS multiple times. I'm trying to get help. And because her stepkids needed the help. What they did was turn the investigation against her and then took her kids. They didn't provide the resources or the help for the stepchildren, but did turn around and say, I'll just take them all, including yours, because you keep calling DHS. That's not how this is supposed to work. We believe in the system. I'm one that have always believed in the system. I believe in what's right and wrong. I believe my moral compass is not broken. I see so many people where their moral compass is broken, and when your moral compass gets tilted, you tend to do tilted things, and I tell people this all the time. We have got to change the trajectory of Oklahoma's children. We have got to change the trajectory of Oklahoma DHS. I believe there's a place for them, but I don't believe that the system that we have in place is working. I know that I've witnessed DHS workers lie in court. I've had judges, I personally looked at a judge and say, can you remind this person that they are under oath? And I've had the judge reprimand the DHS worker for lying because I knew as I stood there that they were lying. And I think that's important. People have integrity nowadays, people that are bold, that stand up. There's not a lot of us left. So I encourage all of you that will stand up, that do stand up, that stand beside us, to come and be a strong force, because there's few and far of us between because of the retaliation. And believe me, it's real. When they came to my house to retaliate against me, I had set up cameras, and as they got done questioning my children, I said, are we done? And they said, yes. I said, well, I just want you to know, that's a camera, that's a camera, that's a camera, and 15 people were watching live. So I had witnesses. I don't trust them. There's very few. I do have some friends that work in DHS that I absolutely trust. But there's not many, I can tell you that. They become retaliatory. They become bitter over the situations. They become so distant, and they disconnect from people and human emotion. These people need help. We've called out for help. This poor stepmother called out for help. We called out for help. When my husband's stepdaughter disclosed that she had drowned a puppy in a tub due to traumatic experiences and the trauma that she was suffering, we called DHS because we thought that was what we were supposed to do. Now I'm finding out your first call needs to be the police. Hold them accountable. Because these are crimes against children. This does not need to be a social services investigation. These are crimes against children. I encourage all law enforcement, please step up and investigate crimes against children. Take a stand and investigate these cases. We're not doing that. We are not investigating any crimes against children, and that is why it is cycling through the family court system. Because now we have to prove it in family court, and it just leads to financial abuse to everybody. You're not creating anything but severe financial suffering for these families. And the child is still left in a worse off position. I saw an attorney and a parent standing outside a courtroom, and I heard the attorney say, "Now that you have the child, keep her quiet." I witnessed that myself, and that's what we're seeing. When you put these children back with their abusers, they silence them. They cut them off from people that they trust. They cut them off from teachers and family and safe parents. They cut them off from gymnastics. They cut them off from any place that will talk, that the child will talk. Because they don't want the child to talk. They want the child to be quiet. Because they know if the child talks, there's another chance of somebody looking at them. The other thing that I want to bring to your attention is, during all of this, if you see a parent loud, if you see somebody standing out in the crowd jumping up and down saying, "This is what's happened to me, this is what's happened to me," that's usually the one that's telling the truth. The abuser goes silently into the night and doesn't want anybody looking at you, and they want you to be quiet. Because they don't want any attention. They don't want their child to have any attention. They don't want that. And so many of these parents, we have parents sitting in the audience right now that have gag orders from judges. That's disgrace. The reason they have gag orders for the judges is because these judges don't want exposure either. When these crimes against children, when they actually get punished, like the Amanda Sumner case, if you haven't looked at that case, you should be looking at that case. She was a paralegal of Lynn Gillette, one of the prominent attorneys here in the state, in the Capitol that does adoptions for foster care. And she was arrested for child neglect because she had committed a crime against a child. And it was so heinous that the state actually prosecuted her. Her trial is going to be in this next week. It's going to be Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock, and I suggest everybody go. It's criminal court. We're not allowed to, it's taxpayers' dollars. We're going to be able to infiltrate that and see exactly what this judge does. If there's 20 faces there listening to that, I promise you, it leans on a judge. They're going to be like, that's a lot of witnesses. And you're going to see some accountability and some transparency there. And we really need that. We need a lot of accountability and a lot of transparency. I'm one of the first to criticize a judge and criticize an attorney, a district attorney, a law enforcement. I'm also really good about praising them. And so in an interim study, not long ago, I listened to testimony from an assistant district attorney out of Cleveland County. And when I listened to Meredith speak, it really resonated with me because Meredith gets it. And so for me to sit here and say, after everybody knows my despise of broken system, she gets it. She said she fights really hard, and she said, in that study, she said, I'd be hard-pressed to find anybody in the state of Oklahoma that fights as hard and strong as she does for children. And so there are those out there that are fighting this battle that really need it. I want to take just a second. I invited Jake to this event, but he was not able to. He's at Guyman at the parade. But I wanted to say a second. I wanted to talk to you about something that Jake did for me. I met Jake behind these doors, and he was known for kind of the DHS senator. So I went out and I met him. And I met him with some DHS workers. So a lot of senators here and a lot of other people send people to me to help. And they're like, Call her, maybe she has a suggestion. So I had so many DHS workers calling me, and so many attorneys send people to me, paralegals send people to me. I'm not always able to help everyone, but I do help with what I can. So I took DHS workers to Jake, and I was like, Jake, can you help them? One worker I took to Jake said, I took a child from a mom, but the mom had completed the plan, and so I was asking the mom, I was about to give her baby back. So I went in before my supervisor and I said, Mom's completed her plan, we need to move forward with reunification. And she said, my supervisor said, no, if I adopt this baby out to this family, I get to make district director. District director is now her title. So you can just imagine where the baby went. Okay, those are real stories. OCCY, Oklahoma Commission of Children and Youth, will have you believe that these are one-off cases. These are not one-off cases. We can't get the statistics for the state. We can't get any of the information, but they have it behind closed doors. And this is what's happening to all of our families across the state of Oklahoma. This is real. This is reality. It's not one-off. I would say the one-off is the one that actually abides by and goes, and it works. Everything works as it should. But you don't have those kind of workers. And we have really, really got to start at the local level. Go through our law enforcement, our district attorneys, our sheriffs, our chief of police, and our district attorneys, and select and make sure we have good ones. Anyway, as I was talking to Jake and I was telling him all this, I was telling him, I was bringing him people after people. He must have talked to 300 people. Probably the 300 cases that I took JJ and met in Lane, Oklahoma, I took him all those cases, was probably about the same 300 that I took Jake. And Jake looked through every single case. I don't know if you know anything about him, but he has a history with DHS. And he saw the brokenness of the system, which made him want to do something different. And so, through that, I was really proud to meet Jake. And so I was sad to not see him here because his take on DHS is it needs to be reformed. It needs to be restructured from the ground up. And in my opinion, I really don't blame Jeff Cartmell because he's the third one in the last couple of years to be executive director of Oklahoma DHS. What I blame is those district directors at that level. They have become so complacent, all they're doing is cashing a check. I can tell you one district director, opposite of the one that got a promotion for adopting out a child. One district director actually did a referral on a parent, and she was so negligent in it that she emailed the parent what she was sending out to her worker and said, make a referral on this guy because I don't like him, and make sure he gets investigated for his kids. She was so negligent, she sent the parent the email and then sent it back to him and said, please redact that, I don't want you to have it. No, we're not doing that. These are the real stories of Oklahoma. This is really what's going on behind it. The amount, like I said, it's the district directors at that level that we should all be looking at. If you get an investigation into your case, so help you God, I hope you get a good one. I pray for you like no other, because this is ugly. I can tell you in Grady County, there were recently 2 cases of infants that were given to foster parents who, you won't see it in the media because media doesn't cover this stuff. 2 children died in Grady County in foster care. And the bio parents were screaming, Judge Young, please help us. This is not okay. Judge Young just ignored them because they already had their kid taken, so of course they got to be bad, right? But now there's 2 infant deaths hanging over his head. Not a fan of Judge Young. I'm also not a fan of, they can be allowed to have a post-adjudication review board there, and Judge Young won't allow it. A post-adjudication review board is a third party that comes in and reviews these cases. It's much needed. When you have retaliatory DHS workers who lie on affidavits, who make up stuff, When you have district directors that trade children for promotions, we have to have a third party that watches this. And this is absolutely disgusting, and everybody in Oklahoma should be outraged at what's going on. If it hasn't affected you, it probably will, or at some point, a family, a neighbor, your granddaughter, your grandson, somebody. So as you guys watch these elections, get involved. Get involved in your school board. Get involved in your district, your county commissioners meetings. Get involved in your sheriff elections. Get involved in all of the things local level. And let's change the trajectory at the lower level. And let's stop worrying about a senator or a house rep or something like that, because they're writing bills that stomp your Constitution anyway. So your constitutional rights that go along with it. I could stand up here and harp all day long, and I could tell you about cases that'll horrifically rip your heart out, and you could be in tears. To deal with a lot of this stuff, everybody says, Mandy, what do you do for mental health? I tear up stuff. I have a backhoe and a bulldozer, and I'll take out some trees. You know, I'm a physical laborer, because when you listen to a child like little Gracie that says in the forensic interview, I crawl underneath the table and I pray to God that somebody comes and helps me. That's awful. I live with that every day. Sometimes when I get in the shower, I cry. You know, and I listened to my stepdaughter's story when she crawled up in my lap and she said, Mama, can you please help me? She said, I'm being forced to shower with my stepdad, and I just turn and look away. How do you live with that? So I tear up shit. Because it's deep and it's hard. And this is what the children of Oklahoma suffer with every single day. And DHS goes into your home and they lie on your reports and they don't help your kids. So for every DHS worker out there listening, because I know they are, I know they stalk my page and they watch my page, I want to know how you sleep at night. Let me do that really close. I want to know how you sleep at night, knowing that you ignore children that said, please help me. You ignore children that say, I crawl underneath the table and pray to God to help me. You ignore the children that say, I just look away when we get in the shower naked and there's a grown man standing behind me and I don't know what he's doing. A man with 22 previous criminal convictions that decided to get an expungement so that nobody can see them. A man that was caught in Tulsa County robbing houses with her in the back seat of the car because Kunzweiler didn't want to prosecute him for the crime. That district attorney. The district attorney that was provided the DHS records that said she was abused but did nothing. When a DHS worker actually does their due diligence and they go and protect the child and they give their report to the district attorney and say, this is what we found, and then the district attorney says, I don't want to prosecute, you're garbage. You're an attorney that couldn't make it, an attorney that couldn't make it, couldn't get clients, and so you took a seat that you could just set and cases were brought to you and you still got to make a paycheck. Sorry, that's just the way I feel. I'm entitled to my opinion. Because if you're not protecting children, they're the most vulnerable of the state. If you're not protecting children, you're garbage. I don't know how you sleep at night. I listen to kids' stories all the time, and it's horrific. Absolutely horrific. So I could be on my soapbox every day, but I met somebody at this rally that I want you guys to hear from. She has her own story, and she actually, I don't know what she's going to talk about, but I found it interesting that, she was kind of where I'm at, and $450,000 later, it still didn't help fight the system, the broken system of what's going on. So this is Pam Tucker, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about herself.
She got me turned down. Everybody turns me off all the time. I get tuned out constantly.
Y'all, I'm Tam Tucker. I grew up in a little bitty town south of Oklahoma City near Chickasha called Lindsay, Oklahoma. And I grew up with a silver spoon in my mouth. My parents owned a pipeline construction company, and I was spoiled rotten to the core. I never heard the word no in my life until 1993, when I went to court in McLean County. My ex-husband didn't even have a job. He was a teller. And I went to work that morning, and by noon, the process server was standing outside my work with my ex-husband, which is against the law, and they served me papers for divorce. That morning, as I was leaving to go to work, my then ex-husband took and had me add him to my daycare papers for pickup. And I was stupid. I did it. My kids were parentally kidnapped and taken across the state line. It's called interstate parentally kidnapping. Took me a while to find them. I even went to Moore, Oklahoma, ironically, on English Street, and I lived 3 blocks from there. Ironically, that kind of, the police wouldn't answer the door. We knew that's where they were. They wouldn't open the door for the police, and the police told me, "You got a battle." That's the day the battle began. I can't go through it all, but I will tell you this. It has been 35 years, and I stand before you today to tell you that the foundation of children's rights is not found in the state of Oklahoma. It's not found in this building. And we are one of, I want to say 17 states that do not recognize a bill for children. There's an organization called the Children's Rights Council of America. In 1999, I'm going to backtrack now, but in 1999, I went on the Montel Williams show, and I was on national TV. We talked about my custody battle. My kid's stepmother stood there and said, "Well, I had dogs, they were named for me." Monica looked over at me and I said, "She's crazy. I know her." So I went through that battle with the stepmother. I went through the battle of my kids telling me that they had been physically abused, one of their mouths being duct taped. By this time, I was in McLean County fighting for custody, and it just wasn't going my way. We had a crooked judge. We had a crooked attorney. Didn't matter how much money that was laid on the table by my parents. Didn't matter. I just had to keep battling. So finally, after Montel Williams, that day, the Children's Rights Council of America is sitting on the edge of the stage. And they say to me, "Hey, we're going to hook you up with this lawyer in Dallas." Well, by this time, the case had been moved to Texas. So God intervenes, and God brings me this wonderful, wonderful attorney named Mike. First time I walked in Mike's office, I walked in and I had $600 in my pocket. He said, because I was going to pay for him. That's what I told my parents. I'm not rich. He said, "Well, my retainer fee's $4,000. I took a deep breath and I said, "Hang on a minute." I said, "I only have $600 and I need at least enough for a hotel room. And I need enough to get gas and food." Pushed my money back towards me and he said, "Let's go kick ass." We walked around the corner and things began to change. When I tell you we walked around the corner, that's where my ex-husband's lawyer is. From the minute we walked in that courtroom, and mind you, my kids were 5 and 6 at this time. From the minute I walked in that courtroom, when the Children's Rights Council got involved, things began to change. They began to do a 360, and people began to listen to my story. It took me 14 and a half years to get the word joint custody. And when I received joint custody, let me back up, because I want you all to know that they had no allegations. DHS was not involved. It was dirty, corruption, non-transparency, and no accountability in the county. the judge actually sent me for counseling with a psychiatrist in the morning. My attorney in Plain County said, who do you want her to go see? So that's who we made the appointment for. My mother paid for that. It was about $400. We're talking 30 years ago.
You ain't got enough
This
money for him. I mean, I
psychiatrist
hate to say it.
takes
I ain't a rich man. I ain't a rich
and
man.
he says,
But that's the deal. We
there's
ain't got
nothing
enough
wrong
money
with her.
for
It's called changing atmosphere
We
depression.
just a little
When you're a
They
stay-at-home
want us to pay our
parent,
taxes.
and I want you to know
so
it's
they
not
can
just
put that money
women.
in their
It's all been women except one man today. It's not just women. It affects everyone. It affects grandparents. It affects the child. It affects the mom. It affects the dad. It's not just women that hurt. Hurt people hurt people. Happy people love one another. And that's what we have to do. But I want you to look into the Children's Rights Council because it's all on a foundation. And, you know, to build a house, we have to have a foundation. So we have to have a concrete foundation. Or if you're in a trailer house, you anchor it down if you're in Oklahoma. But you have to have that foundation to build a house. And then you build up the walls. And then you put a roof on. Then you put the windows in. And then you start furnishing it. And your battles that you are going through. I told a little girl in the pink shirt while ago from Chicken Shape, I can't remember her first name, but I told her, the one thing I can tell you is there is absolutely nothing in this world that can change that God chose you to be the mother. And God chose you and you to be the father. Because God chooses to prepare you. You have to keep your whole life focused. And at the end of that time, you have to remember that your child is who matters. Not yourself, not your feelings, not what you want and you desire. In the Bill of Children's Rights, and I'm not going to go through all of that, y'all can Google them. One of those rights is that a child has the right to physical safety.
My girlfriend's a special.
That's the number one bill of rights. It's not effective in Oklahoma. That needs to change. And I'm an advocate. I'm here in this Capitol 3 to 4 days a week advocating for different things. So I'm here weekly. I have a good rapport with several of the representatives and with several of the senators. I'm going to work with Ms. Reed. We're going to see if we can't get a Bill of Rights. Another one of the amendments in the Bill of Rights for children is that they have a right to both parents. Not one parent against the other. It's called unification. To get that child, you had to be unified in one way or another to get that child. Believe it or not, at one time in my life, 37 years ago, I liked my ex-husband. Now, I'm not going to say I hate my ex-husband because we have a grandchild together. So we're still unified. But you have to put your feelings aside and you have to fight. With all you've got, you have to remember your kids are the nucleus and we're a piece of pie around that nucleus. And without the outer crust, which is our judicial system, we will fail. So, the third and final thing I have to say is, always remember to lean on God and ask God to lead you in your relationship with your child. And always have your ears open and your eyes open because your child will not lie. So have a great day. And remember, hurt people hurt people.
You know, she brings a good point. And Pam, how many years ago did you start your fight? 35? 35 years ago.
And I were talking, and she said, look, Randy, I'm sorry. We were talking, and she said, do you have a relationship with your kids now? And about that time, I got a ding on my phone. It was my youngest son. And he said, hey, Mom, you're going to the horse races? And I said, yes. He said, I sent $30. Now, my sons aren't legal. They're 35 and 34. He said, I sent $30, and I sent you $30 for some spending money. So even though you think you're battling today, I tell you what, that battle will come back and your kids will shine for you like you will never believe.
That's right.
So her story was $450,000. And, you know, I can tell you we went through the family court system, $300,000. And when my stepdaughter disclosed the having to be forced to shower with her stepdad, I will tell you that Judge in Potawatomi County, Judge Emily Mueller, said, "We are not going to allow a forensic interview." And she actually called the Mary Abbott house and told them not to forensically interview her so she couldn't disclose because she didn't like Dad. There's a war on dads right now, and DHS has actually waged war on the family. And so we have got to all do our part to step up and listen to what's going on and pay attention. We have one more speaker. I would like to, Will, do you want to come on up? So I know Will's running for an office as well, but we're not allowed to campaign on the steps of the Capitol. So, but he has his own story, and he's been doing some really interesting studying, and he wants to let you know about what he's learned.
First of all, I want to give appreciation to everybody who's had the courage to come up here and tell stories and to give all this insight. So I know that these battles are hard. So like Mandy, I run a group. My nonprofit is called Best Interest Group. We do audits on the courts, and right now we're specifically working on projects that are looking at fraud. So in many cases, you'll find that mental health professionals, quote unquote professionals, are involved. So I went through a particular circumstance, and I was able to encounter a really great mental health professional, a psychologist. So I had a case, and I was forced to go see a psychologist. It's because whenever somebody takes your child, there is an immense amount of stress, an immense amount of anxiety, and so at the point to where I was forced to go see the psychologist for the evaluation, the psychologist said, I don't understand this. You're undergoing a reasonable amount of stress for having your child taken away. You seem normal for the circumstance. If anything, more enduring and more capable than what I would see being normal. So after my situation, after I got my kid back, and after everything was returned to normal, and I began to look into situations for other parents, right? And I found that through my investigations, through doing the work that I do in mediation and mental health care, that there were a lot of fraudulent actions that were happening, and it's been rampant in our state, and right now our legislators are not being really friendly with the proposals that are coming into these offices. They're not wanting to change anything. So the exposure matters. So one thing that is a really big issue is how these mental health providers get reimbursed. So they get to spend, or they get to take all of the state tax dollars, and then Uncle Sam says, hey, we're going to give you 66 cents on the dollar. To be able to have a license to just be wasteful and to to stick your hand in the pockets of people that actually need help, that actually need those services, is outlandish to me. So I'll kind of explain how this process goes. So you have a DHS case, or you have a turbulent custody case going on, and the judge says, hey, we're going to send you over here, and we're going to send your kids over here, and you're going to be checked out by these quote-unquote mental health professionals, right? And so the mental health professional can be a good person, can be, can give you great feedback, or they could be one of the many fraudsters that I'm talking about. So over the past year, I've found where there have been cases over the course of 15 years where children have been exposed to bad mental health providers. And these children just so happen to be on Medicaid, right? So who pays for Medicaid? We pay for Medicaid. And then Uncle Sam says, hey, because of Title IV of the Social Security Act, we're going to give you the state more money. And anybody that's talked to J.J. Humphrey knows about the 100 horses or the 100 million horses going missing, and how hard it is to not find 100 million horses, right? So last year, or this past fiscal year, over $100 million. In California, $780 some odd million, $750 million. I mean, that's a ridiculous amount of money that can be used on actually treating situations, right? Finding resolutions. And it seems like that our extremely, I'll say it, liberal judiciary is about pretending to solve problems and asking for more money for those problems. It's an outlandish thing that nobody is being really vocal about it in these offices. So I'm not going to be too long. I'm gonna try to keep it short here, but there needs to be an outrage about us being robbed, while, regardless if it's your kids or not. I know a lot of people are not so sensitive because it's not their child, but it can happen. It can happen. You wake up one day and it's your child or it's your grandchild. We like to think that people don't go through divorces. We like to think that people don't go through dealing with DHS or child welfare. But the fact is it's happening. It's happening every day. The statistics are terrible, and we aren't recognizing them in the way that we're supposed to recognize them. We're not addressing them in the way that we're supposed to be addressing them. So this is my call to you, is to take recognition, make these situations recognizable, be loud, be boisterous. I'm gonna encourage you to challenge any person in office that does not have this idea that we're being used. So my name is Will Webb. I run Best Interest Group, do court audits and audits on mental health care professionals and whatnot. Appreciate y'all for coming out. Mandy, I'm done here.
Will was talking about Medicaid and some of the stuff that goes on there, and I can tell you that there's a lot of the fraud that goes around in the state with that. And part of that is, when you get into family court, they do put 10,000 things on you. So you're in family court, and they're like, well, you need a guardian ad litem. So here's a guardian lied. We've had 3 in our case, and all 3 have lied. So that's not helpful. Then they said you need to have a mental health evaluation. Well, that's just another fee on top of that. What we really need to do is people need to start co-parenting better. You guys need to put your stuff aside, your differences aside, and try to work for the better of your children. You need to stop allowing whoever you're dating that you met at the bar, or that in our situation she met him at rehab. Whoever you met at the rehab, they don't need to be around your children. We need to start working for the better of the children. The problem is nobody is doing what's in the best interest of the child. I got divorced several years ago, and I can tell you that I wrote the motion myself, pro se, went to my ex and was like, this is what we're doing. And he was like, great. I left with just my clothes and nothing. I left him with the house, the land, the horses, all the things. And I walked away with just my clothes. I did that for the better of my children, because my children was not going to see a broken house and 2 stripped homes. They saw one house that was completely set, and then Mom went somewhere else and built a new home. Mom built them new stuff, got them all new things, and they had all new memories. We still work together. Our youngest actually signed and was given a scholarship to Murray State to judge livestock, and we went down there together to view the college. Yeah, it's not normal, and people don't normally do this, but I did that for the sake of my children. Do I like the man? No. Are we friends? No. But I love my son more than I hate my ex, and that's where we're at. And so, I know today's been kind of long. JJ was supposed to be here, so we had some other speakers supposed to be here, and they didn't make it. You guys can always reach out to me. I'm always here to help. I'm here to help in any way I can. I started Oklahoma for Children's Rights just to help, to make a difference, because nobody's talking about the kids.